every author that I know of, like, it would be so fun to just see your characters come alive in a movie.
Well, it's also horrible because you have it in your mind a different way, and you go, okay, or you see the director pulling something out of their performance that you go, wow, that's so much better than what I had written in that part of the book. But you sign the contract, you just are like, oh, here you go.
You feel like you're putting your baby in a stranger's hands.
Yeah,
Yes, I would imagine.
But this is for your listeners who are like, what would it matter if I wrote this book? My book would never be a movie. I thought all those things. I'm not a writer. I can't write. But you just trust God. He's leading, you follow. You do what he's inviting you to do.
Welcome to the Bookish Introverts Podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
Hey everyone, it's Brett, and we're back with another of our Baker Publishing Summer Author Events. Today's book, Gelato at the Villa, will take readers on a fun Northern Italy getaway where two best friends will find out how God reveals his purpose in their lives. Our guest today has written more than 100 books. She's sold more than 6.5 million copies and is a Christie Award-winning author. So, Robin Jones Gunn, it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Come in and say hi to everyone.
Thank you, Brett. Hello. I was just telling Brett before we started how much I love the title of his podcast because, bookish introverts, and many writers are also introverts. So I feel like I found my people here.
Absolutely. My friend Melanie and I, we started this podcast together, and she is an introvert just like I am. And so when I approached her, I was like, hey, would you like to start this? Because she's an avid reader as well. And so I was like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe starting a podcast. Would you be interested in maybe being the co-host? Dead silence on the phone for several seconds because it's out of her comfort zone too, and she was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, well, it sounds fun, but it also sounds scary. I said, girl, we need to get out of our comfort zones.
That's right.
So anyway, that's what we did. And we've been doing it for a little over a year now, a year and 3 months. So great
Wonderful.
fun. And I find it interesting that you are also an introvert because I saw on your website that you also like to do women's conferences. You speak at, I guess, or at conferences. Is that right?
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it's part of the storytelling gift that God created in me from the very beginning, because there's always that sort of building up of something that I want to say. And so when I write, it's like, I get to really open up and express all these creative, imaginative ideas. But then with speaking, it's the same sort of feeling of, these are things that need to be said. A lot of the times that I am invited to do keynotes are for events that are for writers. So coming up, I'm going to keynote at the American Christian Fiction Writers Conference in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, I'm a member of that.
And so I'm doing the opening night, the first keynote. And I was just talking to the organizers about, is there a theme or something? And they said, no, when you spoke here a number of years ago, you just encouraged everyone. And I thought, good, I'd love to do that. So whatever that is, I don't know, maybe you can tell me. But then once I'm done, I just need to go have a little cup of tea and rest a bit.
Absolutely.
All poured out.
Oh man,
that's
that just sounds horrifying to me. I'm not the greatest public speaker, so in editing these videos, I have to edit out an embarrassing number of uhs and ums, and I wish I was one of those people that could just blurt it out and it just comes out beautifully, but I was not blessed. That's why I say I'm the master. I'm good with the pen. I'm good with the computer. I'm just not great with the words. So
I think you're doing just fine so far.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So when you talk at these events as an author, is it are you giving like practical writing advice, or is it sort of just encouraging writers? Like what does that look like?
It turns out nearly every time, whatever the theme is, I end up encouraging writers, but also there's that depth with writers and at these Christian writers conferences, what is going on in your heart? What's happening in your way of processing all these things that have gone on in your life, and how are you doing in your relationship with the Lord? And so to be able to combine all that and be able to speak directly into what's going on in your heart, because it'll come out in your writing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's sort of the gift of getting older. There are so many writers that call me Mama Robin, because I kind of like nudge them along. Now, honey, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
I just last month I was in Brazil and I spoke at a book fair. I spoke at churches, and because my books are translated into Portuguese and are in
Wow.
Brazil, and it was astounding how many young new writers I met who said, I read your books in Brazil when I was a teenager, and they
Isn't
made
that
me want
amazing?
to be a writer. And just, I
Yeah.
got
That gives you
all
all the
the love.
feels.
Yeah, I did. I really felt like Mama Robin. So that's maybe comes also from the message. It's not the how to write. There's
Uh-huh.
lots of training on that, but it's just more getting right to the point of
Yeah.
where's this story coming from, and do you need to do a little spring cleaning in there before you get going?
Yeah, yeah. I have so many people, and I'm not even nearly to the level of you as a writer. I just published my seventh one earlier in the year, but I get so many people.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I get so many people come up to me, people that I know, and they're like, "Oh my gosh," which I think nearly the biggest part of the population really wants to write a book, and they're like, "I really want to write a book, but I don't know how to start." I'm like, "You just got to start. You just got to sit down,
Yes.
start putting the words on the pages." And like, I don't know about you, but like, if you can go back, how long have you been writing? Do you,
It's over. Are you ready? It's over 40 years.
over 40 years? Okay, so that
And,
is
and you
amazing.
had mentioned, well, yeah, I have to say, you mentioned that you had interviewed Angela Hunt. She and I
Yes.
started about the time, and we've been close friends all the way through. And we kind of are astounded that we still have the privilege of being able to be published
Uh-huh.
and do this,
Really?
because it's not every writer has this kind of longevity. So it's really a blessing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And like the things that I like to read and the things that are popular, they're so cyclic. They change. They could just change just like that. So to have 40 years, that's amazing. So let's go back a little bit in your mind to the very first book you wrote. Did you have like a strong, I've got to get this book. I've got this book in my mind. I've got it in my heart. I've got to write this book, and it just wouldn't let you go? Because that's kind of how my first book was. Was it the same with
Oh,
you?
was it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was the case
Really?
with me. No, I was just always telling stories and never really had any. I did have one teacher who said, wrote on an essay, you really should try to write poetry. You have a very lyrical style. And I
Uh-huh.
thought, crazy. No, I would never be a writer. That's, ah. And
Wow.
that was all the encouragement that I had. And mostly at home growing up, if I was telling too many stories, I got this little signal at the dinner table like, wrap it up, get to the point, come on. So it wasn't like I saw that that was a gift. And
Uh-huh.
after I was married almost 5 years, my husband said, you need to go to a class, a conference. You need to really figure out what to do with this, because you have a natural ability to tell stories.
Yeah.
And I still thought, no, no, but he signed me up and paid for a weekend writers conference and then told me about it. And I was so mad because I was so intimidated. He drove me there. And I was just like, this is not going to work. I just know
Yeah.
it. But lo and behold, that I found that this is what I needed. I just needed the training, and
Yes.
every workshop, everything just lit a little fire in me. So I came home, wrote an article, came home and told my husband, you were right. You were right. Thank you for pushing me out the door. Those, I am, like I said earlier to you, I'm a high functioning introvert. So
Uh-huh.
like the introvert part will always kick in, but I've learned to be functional in this society.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, he kept encouraging me. I took classes, and the very first thing I wrote was a simple devotion. I was paid $10. It was put in a upper room devotional, and I just, that did something. I was paid to write something. What else can I write?
Wow.
We had a
Yeah.
son who was just a baby, just not even a year old. And I thought of a children's book idea for him. So I put it together, showed a friend of mine, and
Mhm.
she, again, I need help all the way along. She pushed me by getting the next steps in place to send the book idea to a couple publishers, and one of them actually was interested and wanted 6 books. And so I
Wow.
started with these children's books that was sort of a, to me, just sort of a, well, that was a fluke. But then I just kept writing children's books. There's 14 of them. They're all out of print now, but then it was the novels for teenagers that really opened up a
Okay.
whole career of writing.
Yeah. Now, a lady that I work with, she listens to our podcast every episode, and she came up to me about a month ago, and she was like, "I hate to tell you how to do your job, but," she said, "I have an author that I've enjoyed since I was a teenager, and I think you ought to try to have her on
Oh,
your podcast." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Well, who is it?" And she goes, "Have you ever read any of Robin Jones Gunn's books?" And I was like, "Hang on about 4 more weeks and we got you covered." And you would have thought Julia Roberts walked into the room. She was like, "Oh my gosh, are you serious?" Yeah. So it was like, and I'm ashamed to say, like, I've only been reading Christian fiction for about a couple years, predominantly. I've read a few here and there. This was the first of your books I've ever read. And so, yeah, she was like mortified when I told her. At the time I was reading Gelato, and she was so excited about it. So, Misty, your wish is coming true right now.
Misty. Hi, Misty.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so encouraging to me. I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank
She
you.
she is one of your biggest fans. So let's talk
Oh,
about in looking at your repertoire of books. Of course, you write fiction. You've just mentioned that you write children's and YA books. I see that you've also written some nonfiction. So I think
mhm.
most of our readers probably listen to fiction since that's mostly what we talk about. But and just in case there's anyone out there that's looking for maybe some good nonfiction, tell us a little bit about what you write about in that genre.
That began with some gift books that were, this is probably not a surprise. They were mothering books and encouragement for young moms. And then the book that really opened up a path for more nonfiction, because I think there are 8 or 9 nonfiction books that have been published.
Okay.
I co-wrote with Tricia Goyer, and I'm sure a lot of your
Oh, I've heard of
listeners
her. Yeah.
love Tricia Goyer. She's just amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. And what God has done in her life is, I love hearing every day
Yeah.
how Trisha's trusting the Lord and what He's doing. It's
Yeah.
so
And
fun.
she runs a great readers group on Facebook. It's called Avid Readers
Yes,
of Christian Fiction. I'm telling you, it's very rare to find a positive space on social media.
yes.
So like if anyone out there is listening and you'd like to be a part of a group where people talk about books they've read and no negativity is allowed to fall. If anyone posts anything negative, it's taken down. And I appreciate that so much. So Avid Readers of Christian Fiction, check that group out if you're interested in that type of group. So go ahead.
I have received, yes, that's a fantastic tip, because I've received so many suggestions from the group on different books to read or different authors. I've
Yes.
discovered new authors through that
Oh,
group,
I have
and
too. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And there's just such a warmth and a fellowship in there, where someone will post that maybe they had a death in the family and everyone rallies around. It's just lovely.
It
It's
really is.
lovely.
Yeah.
So yes, Trisha and I were at a retreat with our agent put together for all the authors in the Books and Such agency. This was a number of years ago. And we just had this moment during a break where we were sitting by the pool. Trisha was next to me. She had fallen asleep. I was writing in my journal, trying to remember all the notes that we'd had in the morning workshop. Trisha
Hmm.
woke up, looked at me, and said, "We should write a book together." And I said, "Okay, what?" She goes, "I have no idea." And then I put it in my journal. And the way the next steps came to us and how the door opened was just so many just sweet God things that are all put in place. And we wrote a book that has become evergreen. It's called Praying for Your Future Husband. And we
Oh.
wanted to give advice to young women that it's the subtitle is Preparing Your Heart for His with a capital H. So what we
Mm.
wanted to be able to say was you're really just preparing your heart for the Prince of Peace, the bridegroom who's coming. Like this is the ultimate love story. You fall in love with Jesus,
Yeah.
and yet if he should choose to bring a life partner to you, you can start praying for him now.
Yes.
And that book, and so many readers, so many comments of how it just, in a gentle way, led them to see, oh, wow, I have had the wrong standards, or I have been looking for someone to
Hmm.
complete me or fulfill me, and yet I'm complete in Christ, and what I need to do is see how I can be about connecting with other people. Anyways, the book has been really a a whole nother avenue of writing, but then a whole nother audience. So
Yeah.
that's really been interesting.
And that is such an important message to put out there to young people, especially today.
Mhm.
And I've been taught that was taught that my whole life, even as a teenager. You need to be praying for your future spouse now,
Yeah.
and of course at the time I was like, I would never have even considered that. So that is such good advice. So,
And that led to another book that's a devotional that's Before You Meet Your Future Husband that Trish and I did together. And then I wrote a memoir. It's called Victim of Grace and talked about the
oh,
first 25 years of my writing journey. That
okay.
one has been really encouraging for beginning writers because they can kind of see the path.
Yeah.
It's a little different memoir, but that's the category it's in. And then, yeah, so a gift book. I have a gift book that just came out a couple months ago that it's so pretty. I
Yeah.
really am so happy that Harvest House Publishers put it together, and it's called By the Sea. And it's a
Oh,
collection of stories and yeah,
I'll
and
check it out.
yeah, Angie Hunt read that ahead of time for an endorsement because she lives near the beach, and I thought, oh, she'd be a good beach girl to read this. And
Oh, fun. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm a very eclectic reader. I will read the cereal box if that's all I've got. So so tell us a little bit. And I want to piggyback on something you just said. Um, and of course, we don't want you to say too much since you've got your memoir about it, but how was your writing journey in the beginning? Because it can be as a new author, it can be very hard to get people to pick up your books for the first time, and then I always tell people, give new authors a chance. Like I go back. In fact, right now I'm doing it right now. My fourth book, it was like 450 pages. It was a newbie mistake. I didn't know that it was too long. You really got to keep books a little bit shorter. So I went in and I'm in the process of shortening it down a little. And as I was reading it, I'm like, oh my word, my writing style is horrible in this book. And so now I'm
it's
like polishing it up and yeah, like
yeah.
stuff like that. Did that happen for you or?
Oh yeah, it's too painful to go back and read things from
Yeah.
40 years ago because you know so much more now. But yet, amazingly, the books drew readers and God blessed it, and I can't explain any of that. But
Yeah.
the challenges at first that I experienced were similar to every beginning writer, particularly with the novels for teenagers. And
Hmm.
that motivation came because my husband was a youth pastor and we were on a camping trip with all these teenagers. And for a week, I was watching these 13, 14-year-old girls. Instead of being out, we were at the beach, we were camping at the beach. And instead of being out at the beach, they were in their tent reading books.
Yeah.
So I crawled in the tent and said, what are you reading? And they had brought with them 30 books from the library, and I started reading with them, and it, it, it truly, I still feel it. It really broke my heart that everything that we were teaching them, I was teaching them in Sunday school class. My husband's doing the weekly youth group
Hmm.
studies, and everything in the books was opposing what we were teaching them, and really evocative romances that I thought, you're 13. Does your mother know this is what you're reading?
Yeah.
And so that's when that journey was, because those girls challenged me and said, if you don't want us reading these books, then give us something else to read. This is all we could find. And it
Wow.
was, 40 years ago, it was hard to find much on the Christian market. So
Especially in
they,
YA and children's, I'm sure. Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they helped me. They said, we'll tell you what to write. How hard could that be?
Right?
They did.
Harder
Talk about
than you
a
thought, though,
focus
right?
group. Yes.
Yeah.
So every week I would read to them what I had written, and they'd tell me everything that was wrong and everything that
Oh,
needed to be changed. And I would go back and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. But the challenge came then when the books were being sent off to, or the first 3 chapters and summary to traditional publishers, and 10 rejection letters came in. And that was,
yeah.
it killed me, but it really killed me to have to tell the girls every week, no, we got another
Oh.
rejection.
But they were on the
But
journey with you, and I bet that was amazing for
yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah, and their daughters are now reading the books.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
mean, the thing with writers, as I'm sure you've discovered and have told people, is the persistence. Like you told,
Yes.
saying just write, just get started, but you have to have thick skin because
You do.
criticism is wild, and you have to be really willing to learn as you go and humble out. But then
Yeah.
you have to just keep at it.
Yeah.
There's so many writers that just stopped, and I mourn the loss of what great books they would have produced for us.
Exactly. Yeah. Several years ago, it's probably been a decade now. I think I've told this story on the podcast somewhere. So for those of you regular, you'll just have to forgive me for repeating. I went to a book signing for Mary Higgins Clark. Do you know who Mary Higgins Clark is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She's one of my favorite readers, has been one of my favorite authors since I was a teenager. And she was at about 45 minutes from here and doing a book signing. So I went and I got to talk to her for a few minutes, and I was like, okay. So I said, tell me, what is something about, like, what is something that you've learned, like since from the time you started to now? And she was like, she leaned in, she said, can I tell you something? And she said, one thing that she said, I'm so glad I started writing before the age of the internet. She said, because now everyone has a public opinion of everything you do. They criticize everything you do. She said, back in my day when I started before the internet, she said, my biggest fear was what the New York Times had to say about me. She said, now we have these platforms where anybody can spew anything about you. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is so true. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And you just have to ignore it. You have to go, okay, there's certain people who have earned the right to speak into what I'm doing and give advice, and the rest I can just say, oh, thank you, but I don't have to bend by their opinions. It's so true. I think I would actually like to add that with the beginning writing question you asked, how hard it was, or the process. And I think the reality is, when there are many people who want to just write a book and be done, and they feel like, that's all I wanted to accomplish.
That was their goal.
And and they should.
Yeah.
They should, but they should also get help with that, or some training at a class, or go to a writer's conference.
Yes.
Because what you want to do, what you're going to put out there in print, is going to last for a really long time, and your great grandchildren are going to read. So instead of just hurrying to get it done and say, I finished it, now I can go and pick up another hobby, but it's just learning the craft of writing is important, whether it's a whole career or just one book. And anyways, that kind of loops to what you were saying, that you're going back and doing some rewriting and checking on your earlier work, and had you maybe had the kind of training you have and experience now, you would have done that differently.
I would have done it much differently.
But for a beginning writer to feel that importance and the weight that comes from taking it seriously and saying, okay, I'm not going to try and publish by the end of the year. I'm going to take from now until a year from now and do classes, read books on how to write, so that when I go, the book will come out a year later, a year and a half later, but it'll be so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah, and a friend of mine, she's writing her first. In fact, she's already written it. I have beta read it for her, and and she was like, and it's actually very good. I was surprised for her being a first time author, and she said, I'm not ready to do anything with it yet because I keep and I said, listen, you do want to make it as tight and as good as possible. But you can also get in this constant cycle of editing.
Yeah.
And if you don't, at some point, you got to put it aside and say, okay, on to the next step, or you'll never put it out there. And no one's going to get anything out of it if it's sitting in your hard drive.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just let that little baby be free and fly away.
Yes, let it do what you wanted it to do. Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So let's move into the book. It's called Gelato at the Villa. Gelato at the Villa. Yeah. And let me tell you, you really like what?
I really like this book. I don't know. There's certain books that you just, as you're writing them, you just feel like you're living them or something.
Exactly. Well, and that's, as I read it, that's exactly, I thought, okay, this is like a vacation in a book. And I haven't read the first one in the series, but it really is. It's kind of like a vacation in a book. So before we get into that, since this is book 2 in the series, book 1 is called Tea with Elephants. Tea for Elephants, Tea with Elephants. Haven't read that one yet. Tea with Elephants. Yep. I haven't read it yet. I did download it. It's in my Kindle. I just haven't gotten to it yet. So since this is book 2, tell us a little bit about book 1, and then we'll launch into book 2.
So the good thing is all the books are standalone, so you don't have to read them in order. So you're just fine, Brett. You can start anywhere.
Oh, good.
And there will be more books coming.
Okay.
And each of the stories are contemporary friendship novels. So it's 2 different women in each book in the series. The Suitcase Sisters go someplace in the world that is really interesting. First one being to Kenya in Africa. They go on a safari. And that book came about because I don't know, maybe it's been 10 years ago, I was teaching writers at a writers conference in Nairobi. And I had a really close, longtime friend there who's African, who lives in Nairobi. And Wambura invited me to come, and after the conference, that she and I would go have a little getaway. And she took me up Mount Kenya to a treetop hotel where it was built up in this lodge built up in the trees. Wow. And on the very top floor at 4 p.m, they serve tea, and you can look down in the watering hole and watch the animals come out of the wooded area and come to the watering hole and have your tea. We were sitting there.
That's amazing.
Like real I know. And I turned to her and I said, look at us having tea with elephants. And she said, yeah, you're going to remember, be sure to write that down. You're going to want to make that a title of a book one day. And she was right.
And sure enough,
I just always wanted to write about that experience and that opportunity that we had to then go on a safari and just to experience Africa. And it was so sweet because it was her homeland, So there's different characters in the books that are Kenyan, but I took 2 American women who are just so out of their element and how they experienced that adventure.
And then so you went from Africa to the villas in Italy for book 2.
Yes.
Did you go to? I can't remember. Yes. It's been about a month. It was at Florence where this took place. Tuscany.
Well, right. So the characters, and I have been to Italy several times. So I started them in Venice because I love Venice. Then they go on and take the train and go to stay in a villa in Tuscany near Florence. So they tour Florence, just taking in all the art and the beauty of Florence. And then while they're at the villa, they have a cooking class. So one of the women, that's what she came on the trip for. She's so excited. And then they go on to Bellagio at Lake Como,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the final destination of their northern Italy adventure. Um, oh, I just smile. I love that part of the world. I just smile with all the memories I have
Yeah.
about
Oh,
it.
I bet. I've never been over there. That it's a bucket list for sure. So yeah. Well,
Oh,
and
good.
one thing I really liked about the book is it is so hard to find books in Christian fiction that don't center around romance. And
Mhm.
I like that. I love books about family drama and that just focus on friendships. And that's what this book is. It focuses on a couple of women that are just great friends and their shenanigans in Italy. And it's just, I'm like, oh, this is so nice to not have to suffer through, and not to say there's nothing wrong with romance. A lot of people love romance, but it's just not my thing. And it's hard to find books that don't have it.
Yes, and that was actually the comment that the reviewer at Library Journal, no, Publishers Weekly, I think that was Publishers Weekly, that how refreshing to have a novel that's not
Yeah.
in the Christian fiction realm and that's based around, um, surprisingly, it was, romance,
Uh-huh.
that this still held her attention. I'm horribly misquoting it, but
Yeah.
pretty much what you said. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Is now I haven't read any of your other books yet. So is that sort of how the rest of your books are, or do you write some romance? Kind of what do the rest of
Well,
your books look
yeah,
like?
a little bit of everything.
Do
But
you? Okay.
yeah, about 20 years ago, I wrote a whole series, 8 books called the Sister Chick series.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's right when Chicklet was starting and Bridget Jones. And so here's
Uh-huh.
a whole series, standalone, each book, the two friends, same concept as Suitcase Sisters. Two friends go to different interesting places in the world. And the
Yeah.
Sister Chick series is a little bit more like you used the word shenanigans earlier, and that's kind of what comes out in the Sister Chicks because the characters are a little bit older,
Yeah.
um, 45, 45, some of them are 50, some are early
Yeah.
60s. So in the Suitcase Sisters, the characters are younger. They're still in their 30s, coming up to 40. And it helps with the kind of conflicts that they have or the things they're figuring out. Like how did I get to be almost 40 and I still haven't figured out what I want to do with my life? Or like it's gone so fast, and yet there's all these things when I was 15 that I thought I would be doing. And so these trips in the Suitcase Sisters with these younger characters, the themes are centered more around the all those questions of, okay, what do I want to be intent about in the years ahead?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I feel that I should be adjusting in my routines to get
Yeah.
to where I should be? So yeah, that's similar. But I did several romance series. One with 8 books is called the Glenbrook series. All the stories center in a little town of Glenbrook that
Uh-huh.
doesn't exist. And then I did the Father Christmas novellas. The first one was not a romance.
Mm-hmm.
That was picked up by Hallmark and made into a Christmas movie because
Yes.
they turned it down at first and they said, oh, if only it was a romance, we'd be interested. And my agent said, oh, well, guess what? The second book is a romance. So they took the 2 stories and combined them. And then
Oh,
they were
okay.
able to do 3 Hallmark Christmas movies: Finding Father Christmas,
Yes.
Engaging Father Christmas, and Marrying Father Christmas, sort
Yes.
of just springing off the characters.
And I have watched that movie several times. Did not know
You
until, yes, not knowing that you wrote this book. I didn't know until I was sort of researching you for this podcast. Had no idea that you wrote that. I was like, I love that Christian fiction authors are being seen in Hollywood. That is so
Yes,
amazing. Now, are the
yes.
books, do they have any sort of Christian themes in it, or is it more just clean
Mhm.
secular? It does. Okay. See, that kind of surprises
Yeah,
me that
everything.
Hollywood would be interested in a book. Of course, I don't think from what I can remember, the movies don't really, they sort of take all that Christian themes out, but Yeah.
The everything I write is my motive is that it would draw the reader closer to God, so that they
Yeah.
would see Him in a new light or resolve struggles they've had. And
Yeah.
so with the Father Christmas novellas, the story itself was intriguing enough to the producers at Hallmark.
Hmm.
Literally, they could just like, well, we'll just take out this spiritual journey that she has, and we have
Yeah.
enough story there to still
Yeah.
make a movie. So I guess that's good.
Well, I guess. I mean, it's better than nothing, right?
So I think it opened a door. It opened a door to
Exactly.
such an adventure, and my agent and I were invited to go on set for 3 days. We actually got to be extras, which was really
Oh my
fun, and
gosh,
be
how fun.
in the background in the movies. And
Yeah.
I love getting to know the actors. I still keep in contact with them. It was just
Do
a
you
really
really?
golden experience. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
9 years ago. The first one came out.
Well, and that would be a fun perspective because to get to see how movies are made from the backside, like
Oh,
we only see the
absolutely.
finished product to sort of see all the lights and the cameras, and I bet that would be amazing perspective.
Yes, I had no idea how a movie was made, and watching them blow in the fake snow when we're
Yeah.
standing outside and it's 75 degrees.
With their mufflers and scarves
Yeah,
and
everybody
yeah.
bundle up and pretend it's really cold now.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I love about that movie, Wendy Malick, I absolutely adore her.
I do too.
And I
I
think I
do
saw a
too.
picture on your website of you with her, so you actually got to meet her, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and by the third movie, we were having conversations over meals. We went to dinner together the last night,
Wow.
and just I have such admiration for actors who have been able to reinvent themselves or, adjust in the industry.
Hmm.
And Wendy was telling us some of her stories and her different sitcoms or movies and things she's
Yeah.
turned down. And yeah, a couple of years ago, she was working on something. I probably shouldn't say what it is because I don't think it's come out yet. So maybe it was about a year ago. But she was texting me and she was sending me pictures in her makeup for this
Oh,
role.
fun.
And
Yeah.
she goes, "What do you think of this? Would you know that it was me?" It was really fun to see how to be able to change into different roles through the
Yeah.
industry. Yeah, I just admire her so much.
Yeah. She
And
is
and
just so funny.
Erin Krakow. I mean, let's talk about Erin Krakow, the darling of
Yes.
When Calls the Heart.
Yes.
And she was the leading lady in Finding Father Christmas, and Erin just is exactly as you want her to be.
Is
she's
she?
she's yeah, she's just a delight. And Niall, the hero, Niall
Yes.
Matter, just so fun and such a family man. He and his wife have two little kids, and I just was looking at something he posted last night with the kids frolicking on, a summer
Oh,
evening, and
yeah.
just I love the opportunity to have connected and stay connected in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wendy Malick, if it were possible for a person to be my spirit animal, it would be her. I just love her quirky, sassy personality because I am just like that. Yeah. So I think that's fun that
Oh,
you get to keep up with them. So congratulations on the movie. That's a huge deal. Like every author that I know of, like it would be so fun to just see your characters come alive in a movie.
well, it's also horrible because you have it in your mind a different way, and you go,
Yeah.
okay, or you see the director pulling something out of their performance that you go, wow, that's so much better than what I had written in that part of the book. But plus,
Yeah.
the screenwriter, you turn everything over. You sign the contract, 36 pages long. You have hands off from then on. It's only if
Yeah.
they invite you in to anything else. So you just are like, oh, here you go.
You feel
And
like you're putting your baby in a stranger's hands.
yeah,
Yeah, I would
yes,
imagine.
but I'm so grateful for the executive team, the producers, director. Um, there was such a camaraderie. So by the second year, when we came back, it was like, "Hey, you're back, you're back." And the third year was like summer camp. Everybody had gifts for each other. We were like checking up on
Oh,
each other's kids and stuff. So I mean that I don't think that's typical, but it was our experience, and I'm
yeah.
really grateful. And there was a moment that the director really gave me, without realizing it, such a picture of the importance of writing. And
Hmm.
this is for your listeners who are like, what would it matter if I wrote this book? My book would never be a movie. I thought all those things. I'm not a writer. I can't write. But
Yeah,
you just trust God. He's leading, you follow. You do what he's inviting you to do. And
exactly.
so when we were on set, we were in a third movie, small space, so many people in there with the cameras and the mics and the makeup. And so my agent Janet and I had to be very quiet and small and just stand in the back corner to watch what was going on.
Uh-huh.
And Aaron and Wendy were taking their marks. They hadn't started filming yet, but they were checking the lights and they were running lines, and we we're watching. And Wendy stopped. She goes, "Just a minute." Very Wendy like, "Oh, just a minute."
And she's a diva, so she
Whatever.
can get away with it.
And she turned around, she looked at, there's 50 people in this little cabin space, you know. She goes, "Where's Robin?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm back here." Like, uh-oh. And she says, "I love that you wrote this story. It's wonderful."
Oh, how
And
sweet.
I, I just froze. And then she went back to running lines with Aaron.
Yeah.
And all the people were turning to look at me that worked there. They didn't, not, not very many of them even knew why we were there for 3 days or who are
Yeah.
these people that
Who are
came
you and
from
why
the
are you
studio.
here? Yeah.
And the director stopped everybody and he said, "Yeah, that's Robin. She wrote the book that this is based on." And there's kind of like "Oh, we didn't even know there was a book." And then he said to all of them there, "She's the reason you all have a job. Be sure to tell her thank you."
Oh,
And I mean, that really, imagine, because I was hearing people talking at the breaks about, "Yeah, this is my last gig. I don't have another job. I don't know if I can stay in this
mm-hmm.
business." And, you know, the whole industry. And to feel like it all kind of suctioned down to that one moment, and the director saying, "It started with a book. It started with the author. It started with her imagination.
Yeah,
And all of you are employed."
because of her.
But
Yeah, like, and who would have thought that would ever happen, right?
I never,
Did
never, never.
something like that ever enter your wildest imagination? Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah. So is there any chance of maybe another installment, or has the series reached its natural conclusion?
We are finished with the 3 Hallmark Father
Okay.
Christmas movies. Hallmark did pick up the first Glenbrook book, and they
Oh, okay.
did a Glenbrook Christmas. It was during COVID. I had
Okay, I've
nothing to
seen
do.
that one.
Yep, and that was a movie where I signed the papers and I never heard anything until the night that it aired. I happened to be home alone that night,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know, I was checking the schedule and realized, oh, a Glenbrook Christmas airs first time tonight. Sat down, turned on the TV, watched the movie, and when it was over, well, they kept the name of the town, they kept the name of the main character. Kyle is still a fireman, but I don't recognize. I mean,
Not the book you
the
wrote.
writer had changed so much of the story. It was like, oh, well, that was nice, and it's a great movie. It's
Is
just,
that the one with Autumn Reeser? It,
yes, it is.
okay,
And
yeah.
she did a great job.
She's a
And
great, yeah.
yeah, and I forget the name of the leading man, but he's wonderful too. He did a great job. It was a wonderful Hallmark movie, but I had just that
Huh.
feeling at the end like, oh, I just watched a sweet Hallmark movie. I didn't, when my name came across the screen, I was like, who put that there?
But hey, at least
That person has the same name as me. That's funny.
right? Yeah. Did you notice a surge of sales maybe in your books after the movies came out?
No, and that's a surprise because we were anticipating it's been steady. They're still in print, they're
uh-huh.
still selling, but not the surge that we had hoped.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know what that is. Just a different audience, maybe? What do you think?
Well, I would imagine, yeah, and this is just a total complete guess. People who watch movies and people who read books are two totally different demographics. There are people that watch movies that probably would never pick up a book. They just movies is their thing.
Yep,
So I don't
yep,
know if maybe that has something to do with it, or maybe I don't know if maybe your name just scrolls so fast that they just don't catch that it's a book. Because I mean, I'll be honest, in all the times
yeah,
that I watched like the Father Christmas movies, I never once saw anything that said based on the novel by, I don't remember ever seeing that. So maybe people just don't see it and it just doesn't register. I don't know. So
yeah. Because it's part of the credits. You don't know who the director is. His name's on there. That doesn't mean anything. Inspired by a novel or that just yeah. You're right.
yeah,
We're just like get to the story.
exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times when it comes to movies, all people are really concerned with is who's in the movie that I know, who are the main
That's true.
characters. So I don't know. Yeah. So I was just kind of, one of my books is on option at Netflix. It has been for a while. So I don't think anything's ever going to come of it. But I have a friend. I'm not going to name her live on the air. I don't name drop her. I'll tell you who it is if you want after the podcast. But she kind of I know her from. I used to go to church with her aunt, and so her aunt sort of put us in contact when my book was optioned with Netflix. So she called me, and she was so nice. She talked me through it because for someone like me that lives in Arkansas, it's very daunting, because I started getting after it went on option, like I started getting all these massive numbers of emails from people wanting to represent me, wanting to be, all this stuff. And
Yeah,
she was like, ignore all of that. And,
yeah, yeah,
but she was just like, but I want you to just keep one thing in mind. And she's a very famous actress. She said, your book is Christian fiction, and she said it's not going to look anything like the movie. If they decide to make the movie, it's not going to look anything like your book, probably. So that kind of does match what you just said about yours.
absolutely. And it doesn't. You said, "Oh, it'll probably never happen." You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
Some. I think from the time that my agent was contacted, that there was some interest to when they actually began to put a contract together was 7 years.
Uh-huh.
And then it was another maybe year and a half
Mm-hmm.
before it was greenlit. So you don't know.
You just never know. Yeah. So it would be cool if it did, but I'm at this point, I'm just like, I'm trying to not think about it. And then if it happens, it'll just be a little bit of excitement
There
in
you
the
go.
moment.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, okay. Well, let's get back into Gelato since, give us a brief synopsis of kind of what that's about. And then we'll start wrapping things up because I know you probably got things to do.
Well, the two friends in this book actually met in a coffee shop where one of them was reading a book and the other one walked by and said, "Oh, I just finished reading that last night." And they just started talking about the book and it just launched this friendship between them. So years and years and years went by and they were always reading books together and talking about books. And there came a point where they realized, we keep talking about one day we should go to some of these places in the books or what can we do if we really, and one of them saying, well, I really want to take a cooking class in Tuscany, wouldn't that be the
Uh-huh.
ultimate? And the
Yeah.
other one's saying, oh, I went to Venice when I was a teenager with my mom, but I didn't appreciate it, but I've always wanted to go back to Venice. It's like, let's go to Italy. So I
Yeah.
love the spontaneousness of them being able to realize we're this far along in our life journey. We work hard, both of us, full-time jobs. We're always working. Like we're going to miss our life if we don't actually take
Yes.
vacation time and do something. So when they are on this trip, they of course with anybody who's ever traveled, even with a best friend, there's kind of conflicts or I didn't know she was going to
Yes.
be so picky about that. So that's and part of the tension in there, but then the being overwhelmed. Venice, I mean, well, not just Venice, but the beauty of the art and the history in Italy, you can't ignore. And so
Yeah.
there's so much in the art that's just retelling the story of scripture over and over. And one of the women in the story, Claire,
Hmm.
walked away from church after a really painful experience as a teenager connected to the church. And
Yes.
yet, Grace is very much, she and her family, her husband and daughter are very much connected in their church and very involved, but still this friendship is so sweet between these two. It's not like, no, you really have to come to church with me, or, well, I can't be your friend, you're too, you know, spiritual about everything. But
Yeah.
they have, and I loved being able to write about that we don't marginalize people, or, well, I can't be your friend because your political views aren't the same as mine or something.
Yes.
It's like there's so many things that they connect on, starting with the love of books.
Yes.
So in the story, that's where the journey spiritually happens for Claire to finally, after all these years, open up and say, this is what happened to me. And to be able to
Hmm.
write, because I've been in that situation many times with listening to women with these deep hurts from childhood.
Hmm.
And especially at 25 years, my husband was in ministry as a pastor. And so to be able to write a story, it's about friendship, but it's showing, here's Grace. How does Grace respond to a friend that's been so deeply wounded? Not try to fix her, not try to give easy, simple spiritual answers, but rather walk through that while they're on this trip. And I love how the story kind of, it was one of those books, Brett, where you're like writing and you have it all kind of planned out in your notes, but then as you're writing, a new thought comes and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that, yes, yes. And so the scenes become like so vivid and real as you're writing. And that's
Hmm.
how it felt by the time I got to the end of the book. I didn't want to stop for dinner. I didn't want to go to sleep. I just wanted to, I could see it. I could just see how this was all going to conclude. And I just wanted to
Yes.
get to the finish line.
And
So I
as an
feel,
author, that is when you get to that part of the book, that is the best. Because I don't know about you, but like sometimes for me in the beginning, it takes, it does take like I usually for about the
yeah,
first 10 or 20,000 words, like I'm just like, okay, do I even have anything in here worth continuing? But then something happens at some point and you're like, okay, we've arrived. Is that how it
yeah.
happens for you sometimes?
Yeah, it's like time traveling because you go into
Yeah.
the book and then you have to come out of your fairy tale world and be about, I got to go to the bank, I got to go do this, and then
Yes.
you come back to it. And so this sort of time traveling of your imagination until you get back in the book and go, okay, I remember where I was, I remember
Uh-huh.
where everything. Yeah, there
And you
definitely
you just
is.
can't get it out of your mind, like, or at least I can't step outside the book,
Yeah,
like when I'm at the grocery store, when I'm, in my mind, I'm just constantly thinking, okay, where are they going? What are they saying? What are they feeling? Is
it's true.
yeah, yeah. It's
True.
just it's so fun being an author because you get to dabble in reality and then you get to dabble in their reality.
Yes, and then the best part is when the reader feels that they get that deeply into the story as well, so that
Hmm.
as they're reading and they go, "Oh, I don't want to put it down," or "I feel the same way as this character," or "No
Yes.
one's ever really explained it to me that way before," or any of those touch points, so that
Hmm.
they're so connected to the readers as if they're real people and they want to find out what happens, so they keep reading.
Yeah, well, and I really enjoyed that about this book, especially Claire's story arc,
Mm,
because I love reading about characters that are flawed, that
mm,
that don't have life by the tail. I've heard people talk about how sometimes I call them puppy dogs and glitter fiction, where it's just like everybody's perfect, nobody ever does anything wrong, everybody gets along, and that's not what I like to read as a general. Now, sometimes it's nice for a little palate cleanser, But I like books with a little bit of grit. And when I say grit, I don't mean anything dirty. I'm just talking about I like realistic fiction where people struggle, and because that's most of us can identify with that.
Because really, if you break down what writing is, what novels are supposed to be, you don't have fiction unless you have that friction. And so you
Yes.
have to really have something that's being resolved by the end. Even if the resolution is they need more time to work it out, then
Hmm.
you have a sequel.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
it's very much like real life, like this is as far as I can go in trying to mend this relationship, and that's okay. I can be okay with that because at least I've addressed it and moved forward.
Yeah.
Those
Exactly.
are such important life lessons, and for us as writers to be able to open up a window for readers to see, okay, here's another option. I was so locked in and closed into my own pain, my own hurt, but this
Hmm.
story is taking me to a place where I can see, I can breathe again. I can move forward. That's
Yeah.
a that's a beautiful result for the reader.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I loved the duality of the two characters because
Mm.
they really are kind of opposites in a lot of ways, but they gel together so well, and they had their little squabbles
Mhm.
along the way. And so it was really a good visual representation of what real friendship should look like. Not everything's perfect. You don't have to have the same ideologies. My best friend, you're like, we're different in so many ways, and like she has more liberal ideologies where I'm more on the conservative side, but we're best friends. We don't just
Mhm.
see those two little things in each other. So I kind of
Yeah.
enjoyed seeing that too, because it just goes to show you don't have to be cookie cutters of each other to be great friends.
Yep. Yep.
So if any readers out there are looking for just a good friendship novel with good strong themes, this is a great one to pick up. I can't imagine if you've been reading fiction for any amount of time. I can't imagine you haven't. I'm probably a unicorn in Christian fiction where this is the first one I've read. So, but it'll definitely check it out more. So, is there anything else you want to say about the book before we start wrapping this up?
What I have found with the first one, Tea with Elephants, is that it became a very popular book club selection.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's questions already at the back of the book in Gelato at the Villa.
Uh-huh.
And that's a really easy way to start a book club. And even if
Mm-hmm.
it's just a couple people, and then after you read the book, questions are right there, so it can launch the discussion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as an author, I've got two specific books that I get reached out a lot to talk to, to join book clubs. And again, at the very beginning, I was so nervous about it because I'm like, that is so not my thing. But they are so delightful. I love talking because they're so excited about your books, and that as an author, that just feeds your soul to hear people's experiences as they, and their feelings and their emotions as they read your book. That's just so special.
That's great.
So let's start wrapping this up. Um, what are you reading right now? Anything?
I just read the best book, and it's so funny because I read it after I wrote Gelato at the Villa, and
Uh-huh.
it's called Restored in Tuscany, and it's a real life story about a
Oh.
couple who bought a villa in Tuscany and restored it. Now I
Mm-hmm.
have the imaginary characters in my book who did that, and
Uh-huh.
that's where they have the cooking class. And
Uh-huh.
then after I wrote all that, then I found Angela's book, and it's Restored at the Villa. Let's see, it's still on my shelf here. Angela Carell,
Okay.
published by Harvest House Publishers, Restored at the Villa. I loved it. I was there. I read it so fast. And she
Oh,
has a
okay.
sequel coming out called Life in the Village, comes out in a couple months.
Okay. So you're eagerly anticipating that one too, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. This is going to be maybe a hard one for you to answer because you know a lot of authors, but who are your favorite authors?
Uh, I don't even know
Is that
because
impossible?
it is impossible. I read the first book and now I can't wait for the second one. And I think I mentioned I was in Brazil about a month ago doing a big book fair.
Mm-hmm.
And the publisher, Thomas Nelson, when I was at the offices, on the shelf they had they obtained the rights to publish all of C.S. Lewis's work and Tolkien's work. And seriously, as I'm going down the list, everything's in Portuguese, but the covers they did were just beautiful. And I saw a couple of Lewis books that I thought, oh, I want to read that one again.
Oh.
So maybe all-time favorite book would be Perelandra by C.S. Lewis.
Oh, okay. I just read my first book by him last year. Can you believe it? Yeah. The Narnia book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
And this one, Perelandra, is part of a 3-book science fiction space trilogy. It's not anything I would pick up and go, oh yeah, that's my genre. I like to read, but I read it when I was in college, and it just opened my imagination. They're on Venus and swimming with dolphins, and
I love those kind of books. I love space opera. The space books. I'll have to check those out. Yeah, I love Terry Toller. He's a Christian fiction author. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he does a lot of books. They're like, I just read one that takes place on Mars, and I love anything that has to do with space. So I'm a space nerd.
All right, well, yep, you have to get the 3 from Lewis because they're classics.
I will check that out. All right, well, tell readers where they can find you online if they want to check you out a little bit more.
Very simply, robingunn.com, ROBINGUNN.com. And I also have, you can go to robingunnshop.com. And you can download a lot of freebies. There's the list of all my books. There's discussion questions and different. We're adding. It's not up yet, but there will be like tips for writers, and there's more things that I'm adding to the downloads, as well as some of the books are for sale at robingunnshop.com. I also do a podcast. I co-host with Cheryl
I was just
Broders.
fixing to ask you about this. Yeah. Tell us about that.
The title is Women Worth Knowing. It's available wherever you like to link to your podcast. Women Worth Knowing. Cheryl started it during the pandemic, and she wanted to tell stories of ordinary women that had extraordinary lives, or that their lives showed ways that God worked in their lives in remarkable ways. So she invited me to co-host with her. We have 280 episodes, I think. And
wow.
They're women from history as well as contemporary women. They're only 24 minutes long because they're also on a number of radio stations. But we get the best feedback from Women Worth Knowing because we're just telling the story. Here's a woman. Yeah. Nobody's ever heard of her. Very ordinary. But here's her life. And we tell all, so the research on that is kind of crazy sometimes because we have to really dig. And we're always saying on the podcast, please, if you have a really remarkable grandmother and you know her story, write it down. Because a lot of the research we get are just from things that someone wrote, self-published, just because otherwise it's lost. These stories of these really remarkable moments are gone.
Yeah, and it would be such a tragedy for these people for their story to just disappear with time. Have you heard of Mary Goretzky? Have you read Jane Kirkpatrick's newest book? You ought to read that book. I can't. I'm blanking on. It's historical fiction, historical fiction, and it's based off of one of the very first women mail carriers in the United States.
How fun.
Yeah, it's something about tears in the sand or crying. Yeah, it's the newest book by Jane Kirkpatrick. You ought to read it. So fascinating. I didn't realize it was
Jane Kirkpatrick. Yeah, thank you.
We had her on the podcast about a couple months ago, and we talked all about her. And I actually went in and did a little bit of research about her. So Mary Goretzky might be a good person for you guys to highlight on your podcast. So you ought to read that book. Yeah. So okay, so anyway, absolutely. So tell us again, what's the name of the podcast and what's the name of your podcast host? I think I interrupted you a little, so we may not have heard her name.
Sure. It's Women Worth Knowing, and Cheryl Brodersen, Brodersen. And a lot of people have heard of Cheryl Brodersen in the Calvary Chapel circles because Cheryl's father is Chuck Smith, who started Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa, and who, the whole world, worldwide Calvary Chapels everywhere. So Cheryl has this rich, deep history rooted in a very strong Christian family, and was introduced to and exposed to a lot of these people in history, these women in history. And that's why when she put it all together, she thought, I want to tell it. And she and I, as friends, just get together and talk about them like you're doing on the podcast. So it's not just here's all the facts, but rather we're having this conversation. Can you imagine what that would be like? And
yeah,
I love it. It's so fun to do.
So much fun to do. Yeah, that's why I love having this podcast, because you get to talk about characters like they're real people. And sometimes they are based off of real people. But Melanie and I we'll laugh on the podcast sometimes. And I'll be like, you do realize we're talking about these like they're real people, but it's so much fun. When you're reading it, they feel like real people to you. Tell us where do people go to listen to your podcast? Is it on all the podcast platforms?
It is. It's everywhere.
Okay. So go check that out. Bookish Introverts podcast. We're on every podcast. We're on Pandora, all of them. We're also on YouTube. So if you want to watch these interviews instead of listen to them, it's under my author channel on YouTube, Brett Nelson. But if you just go to the YouTube search engine and just type in Bookish Introverts podcast, that'll pull up all of our episodes. So I think we are going to get off here. Robin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. It has been so much fun to get to know you and talk to you for a little bit. Listeners, we've got one more interview coming up with Baker Publishing, Amanda Cox, for her newest book. We're talking to her next week.
That'll be a treat. She's wonderful.
Is she? I haven't gotten to talk to her yet.
Yes.
And that's actually the first book of hers I've read too, The Bitter End Birding Society. I'm reading that now. Fantastic book. So you'll want to come in and listen to her talk about her book. So we're going to slip out of here, and then listeners, we will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.